Good evening, everybody. Robert Carrillo here at Metro Studios B, and I'm super excited. First of all, I just want to welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to midweek, and it's good to be together. And I'm super excited because we're going to be starting our little series on interviews, knowing our shepherds. And as I shared last week in the lesson about how we're going to have some time that we get to know the couples that are training in the shepherding ministry, who will, Lord willing, out of that group, we'll be having some appointments of elders, and we'll be putting the names before. And some of these couples are known by everybody in the region. Some of them are known by the sectors that they were part of. And I think everybody knows everybody a little bit, but we'd love to get everybody to know these amazing couples a little bit better. And so we're going to be starting these interviews, and the first couple up to bat is none other than Edgar and Don Sanchez. So welcome. It's good to have you guys here with us.
Thank you.
And I'm super excited about this. You know, I haven't said anything about the background of this, but one of the great joys for Michelle and I coming here is to be able to build up the leadership team of the region. And right away, the big impact for Michelle and I, what really was the key point that made us decide to come here, was the time that we got to spend with the different people that interviewed us. Edgar and Don were one of those couples, and we were so impressed by your hearts, and it's been a joy to work with you guys and to be getting closer and closer. Yeah. You know, the pandemic obviously has slowed us all down how much time we get together, but even with that, we've still been able to get closer and closer. Yeah. And it's just been great getting with you guys, getting to know you. And I see so much how you have the heart of the East Group, and I hope that the whole region gets to know you better. But I know that you guys are just kingdom heroes, and it's been such a joy to work with you guys. So I have a few questions to get us going, so I'm going to ask you the questions. So the first question I have is, tell us about your conversion and why you became Christians. And I'll leave it up to you. Who wants to go first?
All right. You want to go first?
Sure. Good. So really, I think God was in control of my conversion for sure. My background is that I wanted to be anything but a Christian. I actually was very much opposed to Christianity, and I was happy to not be a hypocrite. So I was doing all kinds of things, but I felt like that was okay. So much so that when I was in a religious studies course, I actually took on writing a paper, Jesus the Man. Just trying to prove that's all he was, a great man, a great philosopher. The more I did research, trying to write that paper, the more God changed my heart.
Oh, wow. So God had a funny way to hook you in.
Yeah, it was a funny way. Yeah, exactly. And so I didn't even get a very good grade on the paper because I couldn't prove my point very well. And really, I think that was really the beginning of softening my heart. And so God then moved, through really just different circumstances and things like that, so that eventually at the right time, there was someone that, strangely enough, we were singing in a choir together, who, I randomly saw at a health club that he did not belong at, and he invited me out to church service. And then I was not necessarily your most open person. I kind of sat with arms crossed.
One of those. Huh?
Yeah, one of those. And but really, again, God put the right person in who had a Bostonian accent, and my family is originally from Boston. And so I was open to getting with her. And even her, I gave quite a tough time along the way. But really, it was because I really wanted to know the truth. Even going back to looking at Jesus the Man, I think that really was a lot of it was, hey, I was looking for the truth. And so I really appreciate the people who were in the studies and who hung in there with me through really a lot of questions. That was what seemed like a lot of resistance, but I think it was really a lot of searching is what it was. And so, and then just really responded to God, and of course, became a Christian.
Nice. And what year was that?
That was 1990, so it was August 28th of 1990.
Okay, so you've been a Christian 31 years.
31 years.
Woo, that's a long time.
Here in the Los Angeles area
great.
too.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Here in the Los Angeles church. Nice. And how about you, Edgar?
First of all, I love this question because I love my conversion story because I just saw how much God worked into it. And first of all, it's great for me to say that I was an answered prayer to somebody. And there was a brother at San Diego State Ministry. His name was Herb
Come
Sanchez.
on, San Diego State.
Yeah. And he was praying to meet a Hispanic on campus that would become a disciple of Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And, I'm a business major, but I decided to take a Latin American history class. I'm not a history class guy, but I just happened to take
Oh, it
it.
just happened. There's one of those
And,
coincidences.
on the very first day, he actually sat next to me. And at that time, internally, I was feeling a loneliness, And this is my sophomore year. And I remember him saying in class, like reaching out and just say, "Hey, are you Latino?" I thought, okay, that's an interesting question. But
Yeah.
my next thought was like, wow, I know I'm lonely, but this guy's got to be really lonely.
Yeah.
For him to be, I'm not reaching out like that. I'm not that desperate, But anyways, we connected. I didn't take that class. After that, I dropped it. But we made a connection. He got my number, or we just knew each other. Along the way, we saw each other across campus. He reached out to me, and came to different Bible studies. It took me out, came to church, blown away by church. Started studying the Bible. But it came to a point where, to become a disciple of Jesus Christ, you really gotta, you gotta believe. You gotta genuinely, know it. And I was raised being told that Jesus was the Son of God, but I needed to know for myself. And so I really started seeking out God. And I love that. One night, it was a simple prayer. I said, God, are you out there? If you're out there, I want to know. And that was just that simple. It was in my room. And from then on, the scriptures started coming into my heart and really started molding my heart,
Wow.
And, I was ready I really did want to, change all my sins of commissions. I definitely wanted that. But there were some heart sins that I really had to change. And, I was very materialistic still, living for all the worldly things.
Yeah.
And I remember just meeting this one insurance agent, and I just happened to invite her out to church. And I asked her, I said, why do you live? And she gave me all the reasons. She said, all the material things. God put a mirror right in front of my face because she was answering everything that was within my heart. And then now I'm telling this lady, I'm telling her, hey, there is no greater reason than to live for Jesus Christ.
Wow.
All that stuff can be taken away. And I got in my car, man, I was so excited to say Jesus is Lord of my life. Went to the brother's
And
house.
you hadn't done studies yet?
No, this was like towards the end.
Okay, towards the end. Yeah.
Because I actually didn't want to. After I saw how much I had to change, I wanted to run away. That's why, I feel like God really converted.
Yeah, I think everybody passes for one of those moments of, fight or flight.
Yeah, but God let me, He let me see my own heart.
Wow.
And I was able to say that night, Jesus is Lord. 2 more days.
Nice.
Got baptized July 15th, 1989 at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was in the middle of an all-night prayer, and in my mind, I was like, I am not going to bed tonight, knowing that I am not right with God. And so I'll be there at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was actually stayed through the whole night,
Wow.
So so that was it.
Wow.
So I love my conversion story.
It's always amazing to me how many people prayed, God help me, or God show me, or God reach out to me. And then boom. And that's such a great, we should just put it on a billboard somewhere to make people pray it.
Yeah.
But that's great. That's fantastic. And you said that was 1989?
Yeah, that was 1989 at San Diego State University. So it was part of the campus ministry for 2 years, and I moved up to LA. So
I think we figured it out. We just missed each other. Because I graduated in December of 1988.
Yeah.
So I moved to Mexico City in January of 1989.
I had heard of you because Herb, in one of the conversations, he was really inspired by you because you went to Mexico City, and that kind of became one of our dreams of everything. Yeah, we always wanted to go back to Latin America, so you're definitely an inspiration. So
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. So tell me, you guys, what do you love about being a disciple? What do you love about being in the church?
Well, I think it's funny. Edgar and I were praying on the way over here, and he was just talking about our son and how, we can have fun and joy in non-sinful ways. And that actually kind of changed a little bit about, what my initial thought of my answer was, because it is true. I mean, how much fun we can have, and it's guilt-free fun, and how much joy we can have is such a neat part of being a disciple. And then I think the other part for me is, I'm nurse in a hospital, and so obviously I'm drawn towards helping, and so I think that's a big part of what I love as a disciple, the opportunity to actually help people, to help somebody find God and salvation and a relationship with God, to help people using the scriptures through difficult times in life, to help people through the scriptures through difficult things in their marriages. To be able to get together as a much older person and be able to relate to a teen and hang out with them and help them in learning about their relationship with God. So to truly, I think as a nurse, you want to be able to help. But there's just there's a true ability to help in being a disciple that I really am grateful for.
Wow. And what do you love about being in the church?
The fellowship. I think that's a big part of it. I think the sincerity of friendships. Being in the Los Angeles area since about third grade, I think just seeing a lot of superficial relationships. And so being able to have real relationships where we've talked about the tough stuff, where we've cried together, we've laughed together. I think I really enjoy the relationships and being in the church.
That's so rare. That's such a gift of God.
It really is.
To have someone to share your heart with, and obviously that means you've invested in people and you've invested in relationships, because that doesn't just even come automatically, even in the church. But because you've done that, and that's a lot of the reason I think you guys are shepherds now. How about you, Edgar? What do you love about being a Christian and being in the church?
I definitely love just the growth. I am so encouraged by who I've become, but I know that it's not because of me. It's because God has been molding me. I think about how all of us are being transformed into the image of Christ. I think about how we are renewed day by day, and that process over years is just like I look at myself and I'm like wow, I love what God has done in my life. There are things in my life that I thought I could never change, and yet I'm different today, and along the way, just gotten a lot of help from, counselors to just other elders and shepherds in the ministry, just going through this process with people has molded me, and so today I just feel, I feel hopeful, and I feel like, and that's the exciting thing for me is that I'm not done yet, and that God's not content with my growth, and that He's still stretching me, and He's gonna be stretching. But as long as He's there and He's the one doing it, we're good. And the thing that I love about the church is this past weekend we met with some of the single leaders. And it was very obvious to see, man, we've all been through so much, and we're all hurting in some aspect, But it was so obvious to see just the heart that they're such troopers, and to me, it's like, man, they're just disciples of Jesus Christ, and to me, I feel like I love that. I love that I'm surrounded by people that we're not perfect, but man, we're always trying and we're always pushing forward. It's like that we all have we're surrounded by some really good hearts for God, and I really love that about being in the church.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I love. There's nothing like being with disciples. There's nothing like, and the amazing thing, which I know you guys have seen, and probably a lot of other people, is no matter where you go in the world, the church is the church. I could walk in the church in Munich, walk in the church in Buenos Aires, walk in the church in Cambodia, and it's the same love, the same heart, the same desire to do what's right and to live a right life. And of course, we all have our problems, we all have our issues and weaknesses, but it is really such an amazing group. And I feel so grateful because of how much you guys have invested into people. And it shows in your impact, but it also shows in your family, and your family, you have a very spiritual family. And I love that. I love that about your family. I love last Sunday your mom just came up and started talking to me and saying all this stuff. And I love that. I love that she just felt comfortable doing that. She's such a spiritual person.
And she told me about that too.
Oh, did she? Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's fantastic. So what would you say you hope to see in the church, and and hope to see the church grow in? Like, what would you, if you had a magic wand, you say, I'd love the church to grow in this, or to change this and become more of whatever. You give me, you fill in the blank.
Yeah. Here, I'll share with that first.
And I'm talking particularly about Metro, okay?
About
Obviously
Metro,
the Church Universal, but even specifically Metro.
Yeah, I think the thing that I really want us to grow is understanding that our relational challenges and differences are meant to mature us and grow us. Yeah. They're not meant to divide us or for somebody to quit on one another. You know, sometimes like God's funny that way, that we're always learning how loving He is and how merciful He is, and we're like, man, God is so awesome. And then He brings somebody in your life that that you have to show some mercy for, and sometimes we're not mature enough to really understand. God is into character building. Yeah. And we definitely get transformed in how we view others in our relationship with God. Yeah. But God forms us like Christ in our relationship with one another. Yeah. Okay. So when challenges come our way, it's not quitting time. Right. It's not division time. And it's maturing time. It's being molding time. Yeah. And so I really hope that our church can, here in Metro, that we can really just grow in that aspect, that and embrace it. Tension is part of the creative process. God's trying to do something new with that, and it makes me think of even John 15 verse 8, where he's talking about we are the branches, he's the vine, how we're all very connected. But he says, hey, that you guys may produce much fruit, the fruit of character. Yeah. Right, and that showing yourselves to be my disciples, right? And so even these challenges are meant for character building and to build an identity, a group identity of that we are disciples of Jesus, and this is how we respond, and this is who we are. Yeah, So I hope to be an important part in helping our ministry to grow and to be an example of that. Something that I'm trying to pursue myself.
That's great. That's great. That is such a fundamental challenge, I think, for us, all of us as Christians, of connecting the concepts, the ideal of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus to our practical life. We like you said, we all love being loved. We love God loving us. We love learning. I think we've really, even just in the last couple of years, we've grown so much in understanding God's love for us and understanding how grace and mercy works. But it's a whole other thing when somebody hurts our feelings, or somebody bothers us, or somebody does something that makes us mad, or we disagree with somebody about something. Boy, then you have to apply all that stuff that we're learning, and that is such a challenge. But that's a great thought of what we need to grow in, what we need to develop more and more as a church. How about you, Don? What are some things you like to see the church grow in or become more?
Yeah, it's very similar. I think just all of us, myself included, just really growing in our understanding of maturing in our relationship with God and in maturing in our relationship with each other. Because it is, we want it and like it when it's easy, of course, right? Yeah. We want it to feel good all the time. Unfortunately, that's not reality, right? When we were first married, I remember complaining to a sister, like, I don't know what the deal is, but I just feel like I was, way more spiritual before I married Edgar.
Oh, ouch!
Right? Blaming it on the other person. But, and she was like, no, Dawn, I think it's just you weren't challenged in certain ways, Yeah. And I think that's really, the truth of being a disciple and being in relationships with other people is it's wonderful when it's fun and it's easy. But the growth comes when it's challenging. And so, I know Edgar's been studying out a lot about attachment and things like that from a spiritual standpoint. It really makes me think about, Jesus's prayer for the believers. Yeah. Of that, understanding that, Jesus, that I in him, and then us in him. And so I think it really is about maturing in that way. And I really appreciate, we went through forming and we were able to participate in that. And there's just an aspect of my relationship with God that I think got filled out some through being able to participate in that program, because I think there's so many aspects of God I don't understand. Yeah. And so I'm not completely in him in that full and mature way. And so
Yeah.
that also impacts my relationships with others.
Yeah.
You know, and I think even through that, seeing how much grace and love and acceptance that God has for me, because my nature is to kind of be more of an obeyer and real follower, has really helped me in growing and in maturing in my love and grace and patience I have with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just overall as a church, I think that if we can grow in our understanding of who God is towards us, so that we can grow in our understanding of who we are to be towards each other.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's so important. That's so significant that, you know, it amazes me how much loving God, being loved by God, loving each other and being loved by each other is connected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't separate them, you know, and what I've noticed how some people tend to, they're very good at love, serving, giving, but they don't necessarily accept God's love for them. You know, and they really have to slow down and learn to accept that they are loved, and which I think is radically new for our church, is learning to accept and absorb God's love. But then there's the other side of it too. There's a lot of us that I think that we love being loved by God. It's just really hard to love others around us, you know, to have that same patience and grace with others. And for many of us, there's our challenge, you know, to grow in that. And I think, you know, especially now with the pandemic separating us so much, it's so hard to overcome those obstacles that you just mentioned, and to, you know, it's easy to feel not loved, and yet that's directly connected to how much we are loving others, you know, and those that to grow in that, I feel like that's at the heart of being a light to the world, you know, being loved by God and being able to turn around and give that love to others. And it's funny to me how that just accepting God's love is just as important as giving love.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's funny because I think with Edgar and I, we are each of those.
Oh, yeah.
That my nature is, like I said, you know, kind of that obedience.
Yeah.
And so I would serve, but not really completely necessarily be connected with God's love for me, but I would need to love others.
Yeah.
And that Edgar has always been much more connected with God's love for him, you know, but not necessarily, it's not as easy sometimes, you know, the service and things like that. So I think how we've even helped each other through the years.
And you know, and some people, they're not going to be able to make that connection with God until they feel the connection until they feel loved, you know.
Yeah.
And that's where our mature brothers and sisters, you know, are really important, you know.
Yes.
To help make that connection and be that bridge.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great, because I think sometimes we think I don't make that big a difference, but you really do make a big difference. Absolutely. Even just sending somebody a text or having somebody over for dinner or you know, having a prayer time on the phone can make such a difference towards that. So that's great stuff. You know, in 2019, right before Michelle and I got here, the region went through a very difficult time, a split in the fellowship. And that is, you know, in my experience, probably one of the most devastating things that can happen to a church and to a disciple, you know, because whether, you know, there's something that all three of these have in common: divorce, falling away, and a church splitting. They're all kind of ripping apart something that God has put together, you know, and even putting fault aside, just the fact that it happens. And I've seen it in different places, and definitely have seen the hurt and the damage that happened here. You know, what do you think are some of the things that you, or something that you learned from that experience or from that time that might help us to know, or just help us in general? What is something that you learned from that?
Okay, you want to share?
Sure. One, I think, right, it was so many layers. Right. I think there's no one answer because there were so many things going on, and so much of even that moment grounded in history. But I think one of the things that comes to mind is the importance of your voice in speaking up. If you, and by that I mean, I think sometimes as disciples, having great intentions, wanting to really just support all the time, we can think that's all we should do. And so sometimes there's something that you're like, I'm not sure that sits a little bit funny with me, or let's talk about that. Taking it to God first, but having, honestly, sometimes the courage, because it's hard to speak up. To speak up at times if you feel odd about something, or if something doesn't sit quite right for you. Also having the peace that maybe you're wrong, because I know in my marriage I can speak up and think that I'm obviously right, which is not the case. But having that really sort of humility there too, but really being able to speak up if you see something that sits funny with you, and also trusting that, hey, God's patient. He's way more patient than we are. I think that's the other thing. Sometimes we want things to happen so quickly and in our own timing. And Edgar and I were talking about, I feel like for some reason, and this is just sort of a recent revelation to me, that I think that Philippians 4, the beginning of it, is kind of such a good way to handle situations. Here's the introduction is, here's these two women, they're not agreeing with each other. Right. So help them out, and that might stress you out. So remember to rejoice in the Lord. Take it back to God. It's not just about the situation, and then pray about it. And at the end, I think that even after you go through splits or divorces or all those things you talked about, right? Our nature again is it's so easy to focus on something wrong. It's so easy to look back and point out every moment of error. Yeah. But still in Philippians 4, the call is, well, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, to really, for us to focus on these things. Why? So he can guard our heart and our mind. Yeah. And I think that's really one of the big challenges of going through even just a person-to-person discussion that maybe didn't go the way you wanted it to go, is can you come back around and have that heart and perspective on it too, that there were still good and noble and pure things that we should consider. Yeah, that's great. And I think that striking that balance is so incredibly important, to live by the truth, live in the truth, be in the light, not pretend things are okay if they're not okay, not ignore things that are not right, and have the courage, as you said, the love to speak up and say, hey, I don't think this is right, or this doesn't seem right to me. I think that of course, coming from a place of love is so helpful and so important. And yet at the same time, also being able to see the truth, but balance it with gratitude and appreciation, with like what you're saying, Philippians 4. It's an incredible balance. I think we tend towards one or the other. Yeah. We either tend to be all about truth, I'm going to point out everything wrong, or we tend to just, everything's wonderful and I don't face problems, or I don't face the things that are, no, we got to have that balance of both, and being able to see what has to change, see the truth, and yet not let it corrupt our hearts with negativity or loss of faith. And that's, wow, that's so important right now. I think especially in our world and all the things that we're dealing with as a church and as a people right now. How about you, Edgar? What is something that you think stood out or you learned?
This, obviously it's a very deep question.
Yeah.
First of all,
and let me just recognize that you could probably list off 10 things. So we only have time, and I only asked for one, but I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so it makes you definitely think of the pain, people I got close to and they're not here, and we're supposed to have spiritual victories together, especially seeing our children get baptized and grown, and for us to not experience that together, it's really hurtful. So I definitely want to do whatever I can to not go through that again. But I think the best way for me to answer that question is to really personalize it in terms of what did I personally learn from it. There was a brother that came up to me after everything, and he pointed out just how hurt I had hurt him, and he really felt like I had torn him down, and people that know me, I'm about building up and encouraging, so this was very convicting to me, but leadership is God's training program for maturity, and your weaknesses will be revealed, and so they're not meant to be run away, they're meant for you to be humble. And I remember just having this conversation and just getting his perspective and him getting my perspective, and just trying to learn from it. But I think that the humility for me part was asking him, what is it that you want me to learn? You know, this is what I think I'm learning, but what do you want me, like that, And his advice to me was like, hey, when you hear something that you think doesn't sound right or something, take the time out to, go find out, and go get other people's perspective, so you can get, that'll help you be more in the right mind frame of things,
Yeah.
And I was really encouraged by that because that molded me, and even sure enough, there was a situation just recently that somebody says like, well, you know what, let me go talk to this person and that person and let me go find out, let me get their perspective. And it turns out it's, really the perspective that somebody was telling me was not at all, what was being, said, and we were able to have some great conversations, and, I wouldn't have done that before. So personally, I think that's definitely changed me and molded me, But I would like to take this opportunity, Robert, to lift up our sisters, and to make an apology too, as one of the leaders and as a brother, is that, we gave our sisters a really bad experience. There was a lot of stress that we caused. There was a lot of unspirituality, a lot of pride, a lot of harshness. And our sisters are right in the middle of everything, And when we're called to be yoked with Christ, whose burdens are light and easy, I'll take personal. I was not an instrument for that light and easy, and that even caused some health issues that in some of us because of the stress of it. So I definitely want to apologize to the sisters for for what we've caused. At the same time, I want to lift them up because when I think back at one of the only highlights of through all our turmoil was our last Women's Day that we did. That was our sisters putting that on, and it was fantastic, sensational. It was a new way of doing things, and this was in the middle of all the challenges. Our sisters pulled together and did that, and worked in unity. And I appreciate Dawn so much. At different times, she was the first one to speak up about things, and we need our sisters, we need to listen to our sisters. And, our region is not just the men's, it's the women's region as well. And so we need to just continue to grow in that and working together. And I need my wife in my marriage, we need our women in our ministry as well. And so, so there's obviously we can talk a whole lot, but those are pretty deep. That, so.
I appreciate that, guys, and I appreciate the wisdom that comes out of your challenges, suffering, difficulties you guys went through. I think that's one of the, I'm not even sure what to call it, but one of the benefits of being around a long time, that you've gone through a lot. And when you persevere, of course, wisdom comes out of that, and understanding and insight. The last question is, what is your vision for our ministry? What would you love to see? What do you see happening? Not what would you love to see happen, but what do you see happening? What's your vision for the metro region, for our church here?
Yeah. All right, you want to go first?
I can go first. You can go first.
I'll go first. I am so excited about just the future. Not because it's something that's super far away, because I feel like we already are doing it. I think the things that I'm learning about relationships and how, we know each other, but we're not this close as God wants us to be. And so I'm definitely excited about what I'm learning, in that I really want to help this region trickle down to have a relational revolution of hey, we are that close attachment that God wants us to have. One of the things that I test myself up, joy is processed in the brain as a gladness of being together. And the thing for me is that when we meet with our shepherding meeting or have these meetings, I deliberately ask myself, Edgar, you look around here, are you glad to be around them? And I look at all the relationships, and there's a genuine joy in me to be around all the leaders. There's just a gladness of it. And so when I think about that, I just think man, that is good soil for for some great growth. And I'm really excited about that. You announced that the Esmonds, the Casey got hired, and Michelle in the near future, some will start as well. And so my vision is even for our singles ministry, that now you have someone that's going to be helping out, but wouldn't it be great if there was an elder or a shepherding couple along with, I appreciate what the Keys have done, and but an additional partnership in there, just like the Ephesians 4 model that you talked about, just all the different roles, but not just applying those at the regional level. No, applying those at the life stage level, which is going to call for people to step up. Yeah. And hey, I want to call the ministry. Let's step up together. Let's step up. We're going to need ministry leaders, shepherds, evangelists, even more teachers. All of these awesome roles that God has for us. I'm just excited about that. I'm really genuinely excited about our future. And as I think about it, it inspires me to sacrifice more of my time and even financially. It really inspires me. So
Amen.
I'm excited about it.
Thank you. That's a great vision. I love that. Don.
Here. No. But I think hopefully, right, moving out of this whole pandemic, but really getting back to and then moving forward in those, one another relationships, and kind of along those lines, in that as people, ministry maturing, maybe even sometimes us realizing we've matured. Sometimes I still think of myself in the mindset of the person who was asked to lead a Bible talk. And so I'm like, why are they asking me this question? Oh, because you're now shepherding a sector, or because you're now doing the, oh really? But it's just me. It's just Dawn, who's like a Bible talk leader. And so I think even as us maturing more in our understanding of who we are, if we've been around a long time, we've been around a long time, and God has taught us a lot, and we've learned a lot from each other. And so definitely pouring more into each other, realizing we are the ones to help out each other. We are the sort of that next generation stepping in, and then just really having a healthy ministry where because we're really learning to grow in our relationship with God and who He is, and learning a fuller God that He's always been, but sometimes we don't know, instead of maybe a one-dimensional or two-dimensional God, and developing that in the relationship so we really can teach and help other people, so that we don't reach, which we seem to reach over and over, this sort of maximum saturation, where we can't help other people become disciples because there's so few people that are shepherding or teaching or things like that. So but where there is no maximum saturation, because we continue to help each other to mature and grow towards God and towards each other. I really look forward to having a ministry like that. There's no need to hit the wall, because we're just continuing to grow.
I think I appreciate what both of you are saying. I'm super excited about it. I'm excited about our future, and I'm excited about where we're going and how God is moving, and I'm very aware, probably as aware of anybody, as all our weaknesses and the things that aren't going right and the things that need to be changed and all that. But I've learned spiritually, judged not by the fruit that a day bears, but by the seeds we're planting, because that will bear the fruit in the future. And to really be able to see, it's not where we're at, it's where are we going, where are we going? And there's so many great things. And I just want to say I appreciate both of you so much. And I speak for Michelle. She's actually visiting our granddaughter right now. But we love you guys so much. And we're so grateful for all that you do for the church, for our brothers and sisters, for our family. I know that the East Group is so grateful for you guys, and I'm sure you got lots of fans throughout the region. And I want everybody to know how awesome you guys are, and to be able to feel close to you as we do. So thank you so much, and I appreciate this time, sharing your hearts, being vulnerable, sharing your thoughts. And so I'll conclude with that, and thank you for being together. If you have a group afterwards, maybe you could share with each other, what's your vision for the church? What would you like to see happen, or what do you see happening in your group? So thank you so much, and again, thank you, Edgar and Don, and we'll see you guys next week. Love you. Bye-bye. Buen camino. Thank you for joining us. I hope this has been educational and inspiring for you. If you'd like to know more, please join us by going to study.laicc.net, and we'll be happy to contact you and help you in any way we can.